my name is Dr. Lindsay Doe. I'm a clinical sexologist and host of this sex curious show, Sexplanations.
I like to be educated.
Today's episode is sponsored by patreon.com/sexplanations, where you can be a subscriber for $0 and still support sex ed. Over the years of researching, I have come across a lot of sexual medical conditions or medical sexual conditions that I've wanted to put all together and share with you. Today is that day. This collection of sex-related conditions is not comprehensive or even based on prevalence, but it is fascinating. Take, for example, erotomania, also known as the Clérambaults, old maid's insanity, and phantom lover syndrome. The person inflicted has intense delusions that someone, usually much higher in social status, is in love with them. It would be like me believing, unrealistically, that Keanu Reeves and I have this deeply romantic relationship and that my harassing him and stalking him are justifiable acts intended to show Keanu that I reciprocate his feelings. What? Sexsomnia is another condition that can really get someone into trouble. It's a sleeping disorder in which the person masturbates or has sex with others while asleep, totally unaware of what's happening. The sex version of sleepwalking. Approximately 8% of people who have undergone sleep studies have it, and some have been charged with rape because of it. My hope is that people with sexsomnia in this situation take accountability for what happened and enforce precautions on themselves to ensure it never happens again. Like a pillow barricade, an alarm to wake the person up if their pajamas come off, and definitely open communication with others about the risk of sleeping nearby. Informed consent. Have you heard of Coital Cephalgia? It's the clinical term for a headache that comes from having sex or an orgasm. I find this is more likely to happen to me if I have to be quiet and I can't belt out ecstasy of climax. It's like all that power built up just smashes against the inside of my skull in one massive ache. It's a little like post-orgasmic illness syndrome. Flu-like symptoms that start right after sex and last for up to a week. Fever, chills, weakness, headache, difficulty concentrating, sore throat, congestion, irritated eyes and skin, possibly from semen, being allergic to one's own or someone else's. There's a longer video called Can You Be Allergic to Sex? All about it. In fact, there are over a dozen Sexplanations episodes about medical conditions related to sex. Why sex hurts, about all sorts of disorders, including dyspareunia. Curved penises, which covers crooked penises from a clinical angle. Urinary tract infections, yeast infections, sexually transmitted infections with puppy photos for moral support. A video on epididymidal hypertension, also called blue balls, and another on restless genital syndrome or persistent genital arousal disorder. I'm deeply intrigued by anomalies and diversity. For example, supernumerary body parts having more than the usual quantity of an organ, like supernumerary nipples, where you have more than 2 nipples in a human. One theory to explain this is called atavism. It's a kind of flashback appearance of old genetic material. Another theory is that the extras are random, a quote birth defect, like Diphallia having more than one penis, or uterus didelphys, more than one vagina or uterus. Polyorchidism mentioned in the testicles sexplanation is having more than 2 testicles. The largest amount on record in humans is 6. Hence the thumbnail. Not only can you have more than the typical number of parts, you can also have different kinds of parts. Ovotesticular disorder of sex development is the presence of tissues from 2 types of gonads, ovaries and testes. It is considered the rarest of the so-called disorders of sexual development out of a group of nearly 60 conditions, including the more common androgen insensitive syndrome, Kallman syndrome, Klinefelters, and Turner's. I hope to go in more detail about all of them in a separate episode. They're all fascinating and probably more prevalent than we realize. The world is going to change when intersex testing is easily accessible and more people learn we're even less binary than they thought. XXY, XXX, XYY, XO. What? See if you can guess the nickname for Post-micturition convulsion syndrome, another sexual medical condition. Post-micturition convulsion syndrome. That would be pee shivers, as in the involuntary shake that happens just after urinating or sex. Woo! It's not painful and likely not a sign anything is wrong, but I like that someone gave it a fancy name anyway. Post-micturition convulsion syndrome. It's a little more creative than hard flaccid syndrome, in which an unaroused penis, which is usually limp or flaccid, stays semi-erect. Hard flaccid, not in an ooh, that's nice kind of way, like low-key boner, but more of a chilling pins and needles hollowed out detached kind of way. Plus, the person is unlikely to get full erections when desired. Bummer. Wouldn't it be great if we all talked more openly about sexuality and could recognize and seek help for these experiences? Nobody having to suffer with a painful chub unaware that there's a cause and a treatment. Not that everything needs a fix. For example, Pearly penile papules, completely benign bumps that aren't harmful to the person or their partners, even though they look a bit suspicious. Think French tickler. Doigt de chatouilleux. Sexuality is so very, very interesting. There are hundreds more sexual medical conditions. Sad nipple, polished anus. I organized a more comprehensive playlist where you can study all of them more in depth or see the ones I've experienced. I'll keep building on the playlist. I'll keep building Sexplanations as a whole. Stay curious. Sexplanation since the very beginning has been a community project, and I want to thank all of you for making this episode and all of the other ones possible, including the work that we do outside of this screen. If you aren't already part of the community on patreon.com/sexplanations, please join us there. I will do my very best to communicate when I can, and when I can't, I know that you're there supporting me in the background, and that makes a huge difference in my life and my work. Stay curious. I'm telling you, this thing is nuts, whatever's in my mouth. Nuts is in my mouth.